Hello and welcome to the Career Success Podcast. I'm Jason Connolly. If you're a regular listener, it's great to have you back, but if you're new, welcome to the show. In this series every week, we speak to the biggest names in business all across the globe. We talk about their career stories, the lessons learned, how they overcome challenges, and what success habits they practice. If you have a passion for business, then this is the podcast for you. In this episode, I'm joined by Robby Yates from just outside of Memphis in Tennessee. Robbie has quite a diversified resume, from his time as a corpsman in the US Coast Guard to a degree in nuclear medicine to logistics and insurance. Robbie's passion and pursuits have led him to many great experiences. Robbie is now the founder of the Follow app, an app designed to connect business professionals by helping them to network more efficiently and safely. In the spirit of networking and connecting, Robbie is also the host of the Where the Fortune Is, a podcast where they discuss the trials and triumphs of leaders in their various industries. Robbie, thanks for joining me.
Hey, Jason, I appreciate the time. It's good chat with you.
It certainly is, and I've been on your show, so it's an absolute delight to have you on this show. Robbie, tell us a bit about you and your career. It sounds like, even like I said in the introduction, you've had a very diversified resume. Tell us a bit about you and kind of how you've got to where you are now.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Well, for me, it's definitely not the typical blueprint. And I will say it's kind of divine intervention. Everything has led me to where I am now. And honestly, you talked about how I was in the Coast Guard and I went in late. I went in at 26. And if I didn't go into the service, Jason, I'll be honest, I would either end up dead or in prison. The path I was on in life just wasn't the path that I knew was going to be a productive one. Like I said, I was either going to be in prison or end up dead. So then I ended up going to Coast Guard, completely changed everything for me in the path I was going in life. Met my wife, and then so when I met her, I knew I had to make that transition to get out because I wanted to be there as a man, husband. I knew we were going to have children one day. So then that's when I ended up transitioning out because I was a corpsman in there, and I really enjoyed the medical field. And when I got out, I rolled straight from Coast Guard, went straight into college, and went and got my degree in nuclear medicine. Thought that was it. Thought, hey, nuclear medicine, I made it. I'm going to be now, in that field and industry. And then it was not in the cards on the table. I was networking before I knew what networking was. I was going to every hospital. I was literally walking in, talking to the chief techs, to everybody within the radio on the radiology side, talking to everybody there. And then going to the places that were distributing their radiopharmaceuticals, finding out what hospitals were hiring before they did the posting. And I just could, there was nothing. There was nobody, they were laying people off. Nobody was taking on full time. I couldn't have benefits. And when I said earlier about divine intervention, my wife wasn't feeling well one day, but she thought, you know what? A friend of ours is having a baby shower. I'll go. And then she went to a baby shower just to say hi, drop off a gift. And then she ran into a friend and they said, hey, they're hiring over here. My wife said, great, Robbie will apply. He needs, we need a job, support the family. And that's how I got into logistics. So it's interesting how many times I tried to knock on the door, it wouldn't open, but another opportunity opened up somewhere else.
Do you think that when you say an opportunity opened up somewhere else, was that because you were kind of open to looking elsewhere? Because I think a lot of people sometimes go through life, and I found this in recruitment, the amount of times, we'll call someone up with the world's, well, what I would perceive to sometimes be the world's most amazing opportunity, and someone says, no, not interested, phone down, and you think, well, hang on a minute, you've not even listened to what this could be. For you, has it always kind of been that you've been very open-minded and, you haven't had that kind of tunnel vision approach to things?
Yeah, definitely. I always was there looking for opportunity. And then the company I landed with in logistics, it was an unbelievable experience. I enjoyed it. I had a lot of freedom, and I was there for 5 years. I was trying to move up within the company, and they had a box and they wanted to keep me in that box. And at the time I had 3 of the top 10 accounts. I was on the carrier side, dealing with a lot of the trucking companies that move freight for our customers. And I was still closing deals and making things happen. I was going 90-0, just, all out, because I'm not going to just lay back off the gas pedal just because I was looking somewhere else for another opportunity. And then another opportunity opened up. So I took that and left that company.
And just to kind of rewind a bit and to go back to when you worked for the US Coast Guard, and I appreciate a lot of this is probably very personal and somewhat sensitive to you, but what was it that made you kind of have that moment where you just thought, I'm going to go into this? And how was it you kind of done that? Because it sounded like you was in, a very bad place on the run up to that kind of moment.
You talking about before I went in the Coast Guard?
Yeah, because you
Yeah.
mentioned that you was, on this very kind of rocky road.
Yeah, it was. And I was I was always working, had, various jobs, but then
Yeah.
I just always had this inner feeling and desire that there was more out there to life. There was more things that I could be doing with myself instead of spending countless hours at a bar and spending countless hours just, just drinking away money, honestly. And then so then I realized, okay, I got to, shape something up. I had, a DUI, and then
Mm,
for those that don't know what that is driving under the influence. I was young, I was in my early 20s, and
mm.
it was just honestly I lost a few friends that for the lifestyle that we were living, and it was just all out party lifestyle, and I just had to get away. It was toxic, and so I thought, you know what, I it was this pool. I felt this calling, like just like I said, divine intervention, God, if you will, whoever, whatever your beliefs are. It was
Mhm.
just this thing saying, hey, you know what, you need to get out of here. There, you're meant for greater things than the path that you were on. And I just took it as like an epiphany, kind of out of body experience. And I thought, okay, I hear you, and I need to go in and get out. And then when I went in the Coast Guard, it, man, reshaped my focus, my drive. It relit that fire that was always within me to do something more and be something more, if you will.
And did you? So, how long is the training to go into the Coast Guard?
Now, when you go through boot camp, it's 8 weeks,
Mm,
and I went in there with that mentality of, okay, I'm going to get some of the best shape of my life, and so yeah, you get trialed and tested, and you push to the absolute max, and you're sleep deprived, and you're going through training at all hours of the night and the day, and I saw guys, young men cry and beg to go home and get sent out of boot camp. And
mm.
it was, I felt bad for them because it was breaking them down mentally, not on a physical aspect of it. So then, but I saw that. But then some guys, it was great because, men and women. I'll tell you what, though, I admire women that go through, no matter what country you're in, if you're going through the service, and any woman that goes through that, hats off to her, because, or all the women, because men, it's one thing. It's like, okay, it's a physical aspect, it's a mental, but man, women make it look so easy. Honestly, I guess because they feel like they have more to prove.
And
I don't
is
know,
it
but man,
exactly
it's
the same in terms
yeah,
of things like strength and what you have to do? There's no kind of allowances for maybe men being stronger and stuff like
yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely. So,
wow.
yeah, it was cool seeing them go through that, and then through boot camp, when I was in there, I stood out enough where the company commanders, what we called them, they
Mhm.
said, "Hey, you have to pick where you're going to go. It's just because it's called a dream sheet, and it's just that, just because you say, hey, I want to be stationed, at this location, there's no guarantee. It's just a dream that, hey, I would love to be here, but the military is going to go, well, we need you here. You want to go to the left, we're sending you to the right. That's just how it works. But they did say, hey, because of the way you push and you persevered and
Mm.
show some leadership through boot camp, I was able to go to this ship called the Eagle, and it's this massive sailing ship that we train officers on, the cadets.
Mm.
It's a ship that the Coast Guard acquired at the end of World War II. It was actually a ship that was built, and then the Germans, they never really sailed on it, but there was some pictures of Hitler on there at the time. So it goes way back to World War II. But so we
Oh,
brought it
wow.
over to the U.S., and we trained the cadets going through the academy. And it was an honor to be selected to go to that ship. And that was, man, that was a tough, tough challenge. We actually sailed and went over through the North Sea, the English Channel, went in. So it was really neat. We went to England, actually, and Spain and France, and I saw the world and traveled the world and just
And it
loved
and
it.
it was a pure sailing vessel.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
300
wow.
feet in length, 100, the top of the mast, 150 feet, 23 sails, over 23 lines. It's like it's this massive sailing
I
vessel
can
just out
imagine
there.
that was quite an
Yeah.
adventure going over to the North Sea,
Yeah.
over the Atlantic on such a boat. I can relate to you, especially with kind of that discipline environment. I was in the Met Police for a number of years, and my training was, I think it was near on 6 months, and it taught me a lot. It really opened my eyes, and it was very intense. I can relate to, probably your experience. I was stood on the parade square at 6:37 a.m. in the morning, every single morning. Your dress being examined from head to toe. I didn't have the
Hmm.
best time in the police. I left after a few years, but it was certainly a challenge. I can
Yeah.
imagine a lot of the kind of other personnel there must have looked up to you, because you kind of been one of the older people there, kind of taking people under your wing. I imagine that happened to you during your experience there.
Yeah, it did. It was a lot of fun because when I went to my last place where I was stationed in Boston, because I went through corpsman school and I knew what to expect. And once you go through the school, you get really 10% of what it's kind of like going through anything really in school. And you get the tip of the iceberg, and then you get out into the field. You get the real world experience of
And
what.
then you realise it's totally different to the training school.
Yeah, to a degree. Like that was 10%. Like this, the 90% is okay. We gotta, make this happen. So there were four. I would say there were actually a couple. When you first go in the military, for the Coast Guard, you don't have a job title. You're considered a non-rate. So there were four non-rates. They didn't have a title. They're trying to figure out which field they want to get into. So they spent time in our clinic, and then I thought, well, to help them out, to get them understanding what it's like to go to school, and to be ready to have them the best equipped for school, I put a training program together for them, and we spent time every week going through stuff and material, learning the ropes. And I will say, man, I'm proud of them. They put the work in, and they actually ended up graduating at the top of their class. So hats off to them. But it was fun putting that together and seeing their growth and seeing their transition.
And the way you talk about your time in the services, it sounds like you speak about it really fondly. Like you still have very, a lot of time and a lot of good memories from your time of serving.
Yeah, it was an incredible experience. I mean, I still have people I reach out to, we talk with, still have a great brotherhood and sisterhood. And it was, if I hadn't have done that, it was like I said, I don't know where I would. I don't honestly don't think I'd be. I know for a fact I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you, but the experience itself, I mean, it taught me a lot. I learned a lot about myself, pushed myself beyond anything I could ever imagine, and having to be thrust into so many opportunities where I didn't know anything, and I had to learn quick because it wasn't me that depended on it. It was other people's lives that depended on it. So when I started looking
Mm.
at it that way, and then what I had to do, it really taught me that anything is possible. But I mean, I wouldn't have that opportunity if it wasn't through the Coast Guard.
And I think as well, especially in the world we live in now, I think that I'm talking like I'm much older than I probably am. I think I'm just a wise old soul. But I think a lot of young people now, even with school, there isn't the same discipline that there once was. And even back a few decades ago, I'm not saying school was right when there was, things like corporal punishment. I'm not endorsing that at all. But I'm saying there was a sense of discipline that maybe you just don't get with a lot of schools, and I think maybe education kind of systems over here. And I think the services can be a great thing for people, because they really kind of teach you that sense of pride, that sense of discipline, and it's a certain mentality you get into. It's I remember when I first started the police, I became a lot more organized as a person. I remember I just became a lot more disciplined in lots of different aspects of my life, and I can imagine from you going from that time of where your lifestyle wasn't so great to going into that, it really kind of maybe set you up really well to go into more of a corporate environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was wild, man, because when I was growing up, I had my head on my shoulders. I had everything that I wanted to do and accomplish. And then party scene happened, completely derailed my life for several years. And then when I went in, like you said, all that structure came flooding back, and I didn't realize how much I needed it. And then how much I really started opening my eyes of, man, I'm doing things that I never thought were possible. And it's one of it
Mm.
was sailing across the ocean like it was the 1700s, which is wild, and just out there, and then relying on the actual wind itself, and
Yeah.
just and there was so many other things that I was pushed beyond my absolute mental and physical ability to maybe realize that, man, anything is possible. And so I gained so much from it.
And you get kind of, yeah, and I found this throughout life. The circles of friends that you keep do have a big bearing on kind of your life. And I always say to people a lot of the time that I think business and personal are really intertwined. And if you're surrounded by people who might be, I don't know, mood hoovers, sucking the life out of an environment in your personal life, that can roll over into work. And I found this myself when I kind of started a business. And I found myself a couple of years in feeling incredibly lonely because a lot of those kind of original friends that I had, my world had evolved and I had changed as a person. And I had I just kind of felt a bit of a disconnect. So then I had to almost kind of rebuild a circle of friends in that right mentality. So I'm guessing, those friendships and those kind of relationships that you form with people in that setting really kind of also probably had a big impact on your life in terms of your personal life, which at the time was somewhat rocky.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting you say that because a friend of mine that I was stationed with when I was in the Coast Guard, he's now out of the service and he started his business and he's very successful now. He has a security company in New York City, and it's interesting hearing his visions and talks, and like we collaborate ideas and bounce ideas. And you're right, the team and stuff that we're doing now and building. I'm just in the process now of well, we already had this process going, but and I have a great team around me, some advisors. I'm on the ID side. I can go on and on about the team, and
Mm.
that's the reason why we're excelling the way that we're excelling is because to your point, we're putting the right people around us in place
Mm.
that can actually help us achieve those goals. And then plus people to bounce ideas off. It's good to have that good sounding board.
And I know we've spoken a lot, and I really thank you for your candidness about kind of what led you up to that time of going into the services. And I think the reason I really wanted to drill down on that was because I'm sure there's other people out there who might be listening to this show who might be thinking, my lifestyle isn't the way that I want it. I feel stuck in a rut. I don't feel I can get out. These are the people I socialize with, and I think it's really great to kind of hear that anecdote from you, and I'm sure that's going to be of inspiration to some people. So kind of going and one thing I really wanted to touch on as well was I found that my time in the police force over here and your time in the services did that for me personally, that gave me a really great foundation of communication. So when I went into, I wouldn't say that I went into the corporate world, but when I went into a sales environment, I found that I went in and I was quite quickly successful. And I think it was that kind of grounding that I got and those great communication skills that you have to have in the services, but really kind of allowed me to excel. I'm not sure, was it a similar
Yeah.
experience for you, Robbie?
Yeah, 100%. And just because whenever, well, now I try not to have that doubt. Whenever something creeps in my
Mm,
mind, I'm like, I just look at what I've gone through and not brag or say, hey, I've done one or the other, but I just think of my own stuff I've gone through. I'm like, okay, you've been here, you've done this. Where did you learn? How could you, how did you improve upon it? And then I take that and apply it to what I'm doing. And a lot of it is like I tell them, like when I go about stuff now, even when I was applying for jobs and now that I actually have a company that we're starting, I always have this mentality of I want to make somebody else tell me no before I tell myself no. And with that, it's just I swear I'm going to keep going and keep,
mm,
making the call, keep sending the emails, keep showing up to an appearance, keep whatever I need to do, keep going, keep going, keep going
mm.
until I'm told absolutely no, hey, there's not a chance, or this is not going to happen, or there's no way. Um, because if I tell myself no before I even start, then who knows what you can achieve.
Now, the Follow app, this is obviously the company that you're talking about at the moment. And just to kind of say, obviously, Robbie, you can introduce the Follow app yourself, but to kind of quote the website, the Follow app goes to work for you, circulating the room, connecting you to people you haven't even seen yet, and introducing you to those frequently missed opportunities while networking. Now, tell us about how the kind of idea for this came about.
Sure, I was sitting in an event where this is pre-COVID, and
Mhm,
it was the summer of I just left one industry because I really had this idea stirring around. So then I'm sitting there in an event, and there's probably about 150, 200 people in the room, and I'm looking around. I'm thinking, who is that, and who is she, and who is he, and what industry are they with, and what business does they do, and what about that person over there, and how can they help their business? How can they help my business? And what can we do? And I thought, okay, I don't want to pass 40 people to go talk to one person and realize that's not the person I need to talk with. It was number 31 that I just passed out of the 40 people. And then so I'm looking around. I didn't know who's who and what, so I was trying to figure out what's out there I can, find out how to, grow my business. And then sometimes when you go to events, you see somebody in old face. So talk to, which is great. You're fostering that business relationship. So you go up and see somebody, but then I realized I would leave an event and I realized, man, I did not meet somebody new to grow my business or potentially their business. And then when I first started, even take a step back further, is when I first would go to networking events, I actually got to the point where at first when I walked into a room, I feel some little anxiety and nervous. And I thought, well, I call my wife and just hear her voice. She calmed me down, and I walk into a room because I'm walking into a sea of people. I don't know anybody, and I didn't know how to really. I just felt uncomfortable, and I realized there are a lot of people out there that through our research that there people are still uncomfortable talking to people in a massive setting like that. They're more
Mm.
they work better in a one-to-one setting and a more personal setting versus a mass. So, anyways, I went out
I
to
actually remember, just on that point,
yeah,
I remember when I first started in the recruitment industry and I went to a legal event, and my CEO at the time took me to it. And she said, right, Jason, off you, let's go networking. And she just went around the room confidently just talking to people. And I was
yeah,
sort of stood, right by the edge of the room, thinking, I don't know what to do. Even
yeah,
though I kind of stood there thinking, I'm shy. I don't know what to do. Do I just walk over? Do I just say hello?
hmm
I'd never had experience of someone just so boldly and so candidly saying to me to go and network.
yeah,
Now, if I went into a room, I think I'd have the confidence to do that. But I think
sure,
that's underestimated. It's a daunting thing to do, and I wouldn't exactly say I was an introvert even then. I've
hmm
always been an extrovert, but it filled me with pure dread, the thought of having to just walk up to people I didn't know and network.
yeah. Especially when you see people talking in different pockets, and I mean, it can be daunting for sure. And so I went to look to try to find if there was an app out there that could help me out, and I didn't see one. I saw there was apps for business cards, there were apps for events, but there wasn't that hybrid model. And so then I thought, well, I've been networking for a while. Let me see if I can't find somebody to help me create this. And then so I talked to somebody that I knew that built a software company, and they said, well, hey, I'll introduce you to some developers. I interviewed a few developers, and then one guy came on, and we worked well for a year. And then he was really pushing himself too hard, I felt like. And so then we brought our CTO in, Scott, who's with us now. And once he came on, man, we just took us to another stratosphere. And then, so that's been a process now of trying to find the right people to put us in place so we can continue to succeed.
And when did it launch, Robbie?
We just launched a few months ago, and
Right.
which is interesting because, like, if we want, we can launch it and have this thing all over the world. But as of right now, we're just having it just in the US and really focusing in our backyard and really getting a stronger backbone to us as we start branching out, across US and eventually across the pond, if you will, to the UK and other places.
Well, I think there's a lot to be said for kind of really perfecting something in one place. And I think a lot of people
Hmm
have that kind of desire as soon as they've got a product to get it out. Let's start this, let's get it global, let's get it all over the place. And, I think there's a lot to be said for kind of, really making sure that you're mastering one thing before you go out in other places. What's the reception been of the app? And must admit, I love the title on the website, Network Like a Jedi Master. I like that.
Thanks. Yeah, one of my advisors came up with that. We were talking about some ideas for it, and for the reception been really, really good. We're in the process now of signing some contracts with a local chamber of commerce is around here, and then we're getting a lot of great feedback. I was on the launch last week, and it was interesting to see a room with 300 people. I haven't seen that in a while,
Mm.
and that's the thing too is because the app is geared towards obviously being out and networking. And when COVID hit, we got together and we thought, okay, did we push pause or keep going? And I said, let's keep going because we have to develop this. We don't want to wait till COVID is slowly getting on the other
Mm.
side of it and then start. I said, we're going to be further behind the eight ball. So we decided, and I'm glad we did because we're launching a networking app during during the
Just as
pandemic.
people are about to start networking again, how
Yeah,
timely.
yeah, and it also helps out with the fear because people that are out because this event that I went to last week, it was color coded on their name tag. Green means hey, I'm comfortable. You can come up. You can give me a fist bump. Yellow was please respect my boundary, but I'll talk to you if you kind of get close
Ah,
to me. Red means hey, stay 6 feet away or more. I'm wearing my mask. Please respect my space, and I don't
that's
want to network.
interesting.
And yeah, so we know that there's people have the fear
It's
out there. So
interesting that the traffic light system was
yeah,
red for "Don't come near me." You'd think maybe that was green, and it went the
yeah,
other way. It's quite interesting it was that way round.
yeah,
And that's interesting, because there's a lot to be said that, just when these events do start back up, not everyone does want to necessarily kind of, go full whack bang straight into
hmm
handshakes again. It's interesting that you've kind of had that experience, because I haven't myself been in a room or in that environment since COVID started. So it must have
yeah,
been quite interesting for you to kind of see that as the first one.
yeah. It was really neat. And I talked to one guy, and he said, "I'll be happy if I never shake hands again," and it
Oh,
makes
right.
sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's just. So it was interesting hearing that perspective. But so it's great
Well,
to
it's
see because
bizarre when you
now,
think about it, isn't it? When you think
yeah,
about, I think it's opened all of our eyes up to hygiene.
yeah.
And when you think about, just what we did before, now the whole kind of elbow knocking seems to be the new common greeting in the Western world, I've noticed.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So it's actually helped us out because now when people attend these lunches, they'll use our app and they're able to connect with everybody within the room. And then all their contacts are sorted and stored by industry. So that way they can reach back out to them and follow up with another time because it makes it easier to approach them on their preferred method of contact. There's some stuff that we have and it just make it a little bit easier so they feel like they're not missing
Mm.
opportunities. So now if they talk to one person, it may be a win, it may be a bust, they don't know, or they can have their red, label on and say, "Hey, let me keep my distance, but I still want to connect and share information." So,
And it's interesting actually, because your app kind of goes hand in hand with hygiene. Do you want to be touching business cards anymore? No, I do not want to be touching
yeah.
business cards. Here we go. The app is very timely. So I'm sure that's going to help people there. What have you what's been one of the biggest learnings for you in trying to develop an app? Because it doesn't seem like an easy thing to do.
No, not at all. Actually, for me, I went into it naive. I just thought, "Hey, I'll create an app," but then I realized things really shifted for us more and started happening more when I put myself in the mindset of, "Hey, we're creating a software and building a software company versus just creating an app." Because there's a lot more work that goes into it when you think about it from the business standpoint and put your mind around in that regard. So that was the biggest thing for me. Wasn't a huge adjustment. Wasn't like it was difficult. It was easy to make that change, but it was just more that being a little naive at first.
Mm.
Oh, I'll just build an app, but then I realized there's a lot more that goes on with it and behind the scenes. But that's been so rewarding and exciting just for the whole journey of it.
And it sounds punchy as well. The follow app. I'm somewhat surprised that name hadn't gone. It's you've got a great name there. It's punchy. You're definitely going to remember it.
Yeah, that came from my wife. We're on a road trip one time, and I was trying to come up with a name, and she said I was talking with her, and she's from up north, and up north they're very direct. Unlike the South, people they say nice things, but they don't say what they really want to mean a lot of times. And my wife, she goes, "Don't talk to me. Just give me a few minutes." I'm like, "All right, I respect that." So I let her have her few moments, and she goes, "Your fortune is in the follow app," and I thought I love it. So there,
Oh.
that's where we went with it. Yeah.
That is punchy indeed. And what advice would you give to someone, Robbie, who's thinking, right, I want to go out there, I want to start a business, perhaps even someone's thought of an idea that might be technology based, or perhaps they've even got an idea for an app. What kind of advice would you give to someone maybe in the early days of having a concept in their mind?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, the obvious stuff is it's going to be difficult. There are going to be some challenging moments, but keep going, keep pushing. But aside from that, is if they are thinking about an app, put themselves in a mind frame of, okay, what's the best way I can build this company, and the best way you can do that, and then put a solid team around you. Don't think, you know what, hey, I can do it by yourself. If you can code or you can get some people that can code, fantastic. But I would recommend of getting an advisors on your board that have been there, done that before. I'm blessed to have a few advisors. One gentleman sold two software companies. Another guy, he's actually serial entrepreneur, investor. I mean, go on and on about him as well. And so they've been down the road before me, and it's great to have them as a sounding board. So if they're thinking about it but don't know where to start, I would, if they can, sort of reach out to people that have been there, done that
And
before,
is that
and
what
then
you
use
did?
that.
Did you kind of reach out to people in the industry to get these mentors?
No, not at all. I feel like I did the opposite. I feel like the so for me it was okay, let's find a developer and get started. And I found a developer, got started, and I realized we were kind of in stagnant water. We needed somebody else to come on board to push us forward. And then I found our CTO, and then he found a couple other more developers, and then we were pushing forth. And while we were doing that, then I was seeking funding for it so we can pour into it to keep going with the development side. And then when that started going, then I thought, okay, we need some more funding. And then I met with a gentleman out in California. I didn't ask him for money right away. I was just curious just to talk with him, and then we built a good relationship up, good rapport. And then he was talking about he goes, "What about your advisors?" I go, "What do you mean? I mean, you don't know what you don't know." And then he said, "Well, who's on your advisor board?" I said, "That's a great question." I said, "I don't have anybody." So then we were talking, and he said, "I recommend get some advisors." I said, "Fantastic." And then so talking with him, I said, "Would you be interested in being one?" I said, "You already know everything about our company." And I said, "It's okay to tell me no." I said, "I'm a big boy." And he says, "No, man, I would love to be a part of it." And he goes, "All right." So he came on board, and then I asked a couple other people, and I could not be more thrilled with the people we have with us here. And we have a lot of opportunity that are lined up, a lot of appointments that are set for really strategic and growth that's happening. So it's been exciting.
It sounds like a lot of the jigsaw pieces have just kind of slotted into place, whether intentional or unintentional.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, like I was go back to earlier what I was saying. I'm a firm believer you have to get out there and put yourself, especially in situations where you don't. Or for me, I didn't know anything about how to build an app, how to go about seeking funding, how to raise
Mm.
funding, how do we like. I didn't know that, so it's just it's just reading, research, talking to people, and eventually the universe just opens up and it's like, hey, here's a little nugget for you. Try this here, and before you know it, doors open up.
Well, and Robbie, I truly wish you all the best of luck with the follow up. It sounds like a great concept and a really good idea. If people want to find out more about you, the follow up, or indeed they want to listen to your podcast, Where the Fortune Is, where can they go?
Yeah, you can go to wherethefortuneis.com, and it's also on really any platform that they listen to their podcast. It's where the fortune is, and as far as anything about the app itself, it's where the fortune. I mean, it's thefollowapp.co. It's co or thefollowapp.net. Net.
Well, Robbie, thank you so much. It's been a really insightful chat. And as I said, I wish you all the best of luck with the follow up.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Jason. It's good talking with you, man. It's been a while since we chat, so it's
It
good chat with you. Good
has.
to hear
I
things
could
as
chat
well.
to you for so much longer now. I almost wanted to talk to you more about the funding, this, that, and all other things about the board. But we shall save that for another time. It's been a delight. Thank you, Robbie. That's Robbie Yates from Memphis, Tennessee. I'm Jason Connolly.